And welcome to this conference on the consequences of Brexit on the Balearic Islands. Thank you all for connecting from your homes and work sites. Thanks to the General Directors of the government, Miquel Piñol and Tony Vicens, for joining us here today and for promoting this interesting cycle. And thanks, of course, to the speakers. Jason Moore, Director of the Majorca Daily Bulletin, and Jonny Greenall, owner of Balearic Helicopters. With this session, we close the second cycle of conferences on Brexit and its impact on the Balearic Islands. Along with different experts, we have reviewed how companies should adapt to new regulations. And we find uncertain issues continue to the lack of bilateral agreements that regulate the business relations. And as well, how the consequences of the COVID and the strength of the pound will, to a greater extent, affect the economic repercussions of the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union. But how do the British residents of the islands deal with this divorce? How do you take the news in October when Boris Johnson announced that he would not request an extension of the transaction period? What do you think will change in your lives as of January 1st, 2021? We are fortunate here to have today two British residents who have been working in Mallorca for years, who have enough perspective through their work to speak about the challenges that arise. Jason Moore directs the Majorca Daily Bulletin, the only English language newspaper published in the island. And Jonny Greenall is the owner of a helicopter company in Mallorca that will suffer from the end of the free movement of people, workers, and tourists. Please do not hesitate to ask questions through the chat of this webinar, and at the end of the presentations, we will try to answer all of them. I would like to remind you that this conference will be held in English, but however, my colleague was saying at the beginning, the simultaneous translation service into Spanish is available. I now give the floor to the General Director of Comerç of the Government of the Balearic Islands, Miquel Piñol. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Agradecer a la Cambra de Comercio de Mallorca este segundo ciclo de Brexit, Director General de Exteriors. Bon dia a tots. Muchas gracias por asistir a esta nueva sesión del ciclo, de este segundo ciclo de Brexit, que se cierra con, como ha comentado nuestra compañera Susana, con aspectos que repercuten en la ciudadanía de las Islas Baleares. No debemos olvidar que la colonia británica, o la colonia británica específicamente aquí en las Islas Baleares, es una de las más numerosas en lo que a ciudadanos y a representación se refiere, y por tanto consideramos que es un buen momento para este ciclo cerrarlo con cuestiones que les atañen a ello. Por tanto, yo, para no alargar más, quiero dar las gracias tanto a Jason como a Jonny por su participación en esta sesión que esperamos sea muy interesante, así que doy la palabra a Jason. Jason, please. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us today. Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry about that. Bon dia, buenos dias, and good morning. Brexit. What a nightmare. Now, 4 years ago, I awoke to find that my country, even though I've lived here for 30 years of my life, had voted to leave the European Union. And basically, my heart sank. Why? Because everything that we do depends on Europe. My newspaper lives from tourism and residents who live on the island. The first thing that happened on the day of the referendum, hours after, the value of pound sterling against the euro fell exceptionally. All of a sudden, owning a house in Mallorca was very expensive. So that killed off a sizable part of our advertising revenue. Then you have the little matter of your paperwork. What will British residents have to do to live here? It won't be as easy as before. And then there's the question of tourism. Now, I think before I go on to the problems that we're going to face, I think you've got to look at the history of Britain and Europe. The British had never felt comfortable in the European Union. Why? Because they're quite a skeptical nation. Even though they believe in the freedom of Europe, which we've proved in 2 world wars, the idea of a union with European countries was not always everybody's cup of tea. Excuse the pun. I know from my parents, they weren't that impressed with the European Union, even though they used to come on holiday to Europe. It's not a question of the British being anti-European, it's more a question of being anti-European Union. The British media for many years have kept up a campaign against the European Union. There was the biggest thing, there was a tabloid, which you probably all know, called The Sun, that launched a campaign because Brussels wanted our bananas to be straight instead of being rounded. And of course, all this has caused a lot of controversy in the UK. And then there's the issue of immigration. It was perceived that the European Union were allowing immigrants into the UK to allegedly steal British jobs. Now, we all know this is not the case, but this was the perception. So it has always been a burning issue. The Conservative Party, which rules now, which, as you know, Boris Johnson is the leader of, has been split in two over this issue for years. What brought down Margaret Thatcher? Europe. What brought down John Major? Europe. Tony Blair managed to keep the problem under control. And then ever since then, and David Cameron, as a result of the power of the UK Independence Party, which wanted a pull-out from Europe immediately, was forced to promise a referendum. Now, I don't think anybody in their right mind thought that the British would vote to leave the European Union. It was senseless. I think everybody thought it was really close, but not that close. But it was a very good campaign led by Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, the UK Independence Party, which actually struck a chord with the British public. What was that? In other words, they would cut immigration. There'll be more money for the National Health Service. And Britain would be able to stand alone and be a sole trader again, be the big trading partner which everyone thought it could be. Now, my perception of this is it's all too late. If this had been done perhaps in the 50s, it could have just worked. But Britain went in with Europe, and now, at the end of the day, the European Union is not bad. I will say, though, that I think European Union leaders could have done more to persuade the British to remain. I think if Angela Merkel had addressed the British public on British television and say, "Come on, friends, please stay," I think it would have worked. Now, this could have been the fault of David Cameron, who said, "Don't worry about it. We're home and dry. You don't have to worry." But there wasn't that feeling in Britain that Europe really wanted us. It was a question of, well, if you want to go, go. If you want to stay, stay. So that was that was a bit of a problem. And of course, what happened? We got the result we wanted. Before I came in here, a lot of people said to me, well, I bet now if people voted now, they would all vote to stay and all the rest of it. Sadly, not the case. It is still 52% leave, 48% stay. And if you look at Boris Johnson's victory in the general election earlier this year, in which he won an 80-seat majority, you can see that Britain doesn't want, or England, at least England, doesn't want to be in the European Union. So I'm afraid to say we will be leaving the European Union on the 31st of December with or without a deal. So that's the history. So how is it going to affect me, Jonny, and the 25,000 other British residents on the island? Well, sadly, we don't really know, because it all depends on a bilateral agreement which will have to be signed between the Spanish and British governments once Britain has left the European Union. Firstly, I would say thank you very much to the Spanish authorities and the Balearic authorities here for doing so much to help British people get their paperwork in order, because we've had to change, or we will have to change everything. We used to have a green residence certificate. Well, that's gone because it's just for European Union residents. So now we have our own Brexit residence card, which the Spanish government, and I thanked Ana Calvo the other day for the gobierno for actually, you know, for helping people get their paperwork in order, because there are a lot of British residents on the island who did not have their paperwork in order. They didn't have a residence permit. They just thought, well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does, because on the 1st of January, many of these people will be illegal aliens from a non-European Union country. There's the issue of healthcare. Mallorca has a fantastic medical system, and a lot of British residents love it and use it. Now, there is a concern that they won't be able to use it after Brexit. Now, everyone has said, well, don't worry about it. This will happen. We will sort things out and all that. But at the moment, there are no real assurances. I'm quite skeptical of what could happen on January the 2nd, because there are so many problems. There's a rumor that banks in the UK will not work, and you will not be able to transfer money from the UK, from Britain to the Balearics. So that is the people who live here. Then we have the holiday homeowners. Before Brexit, the pound was doing very well against the euro. What does that mean? If sterling's doing well, the Balearics does well, because the Brits love the Balearics. So they're all buying houses here and all the rest of it. Sterling drops, end of story. No one's buying a house. The British market goes from being the biggest buyers, or one of the biggest buyers, to the biggest seller. So that is a great shame, and because British residents can no longer afford it. Tourism. Well, tourism, as we know, Britain is the #1 market for the Balearics. Places like Majorca live from British tourism. I think 80% of all tourists that go to Majorca are British. In Mallorca, I think it's about 20%, and Ibiza is a bit higher, about 30%. So it's a big market. What are our fears? If the Spanish government demands visas from British tourists, then we have a big problem. And unfortunately, there is nothing Spain can do to make this problem easier. And that's what I find so sad. I think people in Britain voted for something that they believed in at the time, but I don't think they believe in it now, but they're not going to go back. Because there was a thing called Project Fear. And Project Fear was launched by the anti-Brexit group led by David Cameron, who was saying, well, you won't be able to live in Europe. Your airfares are going to be more expensive. Your pound won't buy you so much. You will be, it'll be a nightmare for you. And everybody going, yeah, that's not true. Ha, ha, ha. It's all propaganda. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, David Cameron has proved right. But there's one thing I would say about the British. We've had our backs to the wall before. Britain is a trading nation. Britain is the wheeler dealer, buy one, get one free nation. Brexit does present us with some opportunities. I'm trying to be positive. There is an open market again, that we can establish trade deals with Australia, with New Zealand, with Canada, countries which formed what was called the old Commonwealth. Now, these are very interested in British trade. And of course, then there's the United States. Now, when Donald Trump was in the White House, as we all know, Donald Trump was anti-Brexit, was pro-Brexit. Sorry. So it looks as if things were looking good. Things were, okay. Well, now we got Joe Biden in the White House, who is anti-Brexit and wants Britain to stay in the European Union. So we will see what trade deals can be done. You have to remember, sadly, that Britain actually makes very little. The whole British economy is based around services. So we buy a lot from Germany, from France, from Spain, and the US. So all this market is now open. Now, British people are not going to give up buying cars, washing machines. So there is a big market, and Britain is the 5th biggest economy in the world. So there is a market there, and Europe might struggle to actually get this market because obviously there's going to be a lot of competition. The problem I foresee will be the first 6 months. What is going to happen the first 6 months? And I think that could be a nightmare. And what with COVID and Brexit, you think, apague vámonos. But in the long run, I'm quietly confident that it could work. But I'm talking 2 or 3 years' time. Personally speaking, I think we're better together. I think what COVID has shown us is that if you remain together, problems can be resolved a lot more quickly. I am sad in some ways that this is happening because I've lived on Mallorca for 40 years and this has become my home. I went to school here, I worked here, and Spain has given me everything. And what I don't want you to believe is that the British are anti-Europe. The British, and I'm talking 52% of the people who voted for Brexit, are anti-European Union. I would say the British love Europe. They love this country. They are deeply distressed. They can't travel here at the moment. And you can safely say, as soon as the COVID problem has been overcome, they'll be here. And in some ways, if they have to get a visa, they will get a visa because the love affair with Majorca in Britain continues, and it will continue always because British people have been coming here on holiday for almost 80, 100 years, and I can't see that dying down. There will be problems, but fingers crossed, it will be okay. If you look back, when I first started working here 30 years ago, you used to have to get a work permit. The paperwork was difficult then, but people still used to come here on holiday. People still were buying houses here. My parents came here in 1975, and Franco was still alive. So, you know, the Brits love Mallorca. Why do they come here? Because they come on honeymoon in the 1950s, and they thought, well, this is a marvelous place. This is where I want to be. So there is reason for concern. We should be worried. And I do feel sorry for all the companies here who rely on the British market, because the British market is always like this. It'd be lovely if it's like the German market was like that. But in my 30 years on the Mallorca Daily Bulletin, I've seen more than that. But unfortunately, this one is quite a big one. I think we just got to have faith in Britain, have faith in the British people that they love this island, and they will come. And you can say that if you export potatoes from Sao Paulo, they will continue to buy them because Mallorca is very much part of the British way of life. I will never agree with Brexit, but through my parents, I saw that there is an anti-European European Union sentiment, and I just hope this will go away. And in 10 years' time, hopefully, Britain will be able to rejoin. But let's not fool ourselves. The European Union does have some problems, and it is problems that it needs to resolve because it is not an organization that is fit for purpose. I think the European Union needs to be overhauled. Now is the moment to overhaul it. make it more democratic, make it more in touch with what the people are thinking. If you look at COVID, Europe is meant to be one, but every country in Europe has a different COVID policy. Why can't the European Union introduce one COVID policy for the whole bloc? And these are things that it's got to look at. Britain is wrong to leave, but the European Union needs to right itself sooner rather than later, because I fear that if it doesn't, other countries could follow Europe. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to pass the word to Jonny Greenall, owner of Balearic Helicopters.
Hello. So I'm going to give a short presentation with a PowerPoint, which hopefully will appear in a second. I will tell you a little bit about myself and where my role is in Majorca and what I've been doing here, what the company does. I'm going to explain to you the legislation and the current legislation of aviation in Europe at this moment, and then what Brexit is going to do to the aviation. So if I press that. So firstly, I've been coming here for 42 years. I've been coming here since I was a little boy, on holiday with my parents. So I have a very long relationship with Mallorca. I've lived here for 27 years now, where I learned to fly here back in '99 and been working here as a helicopter pilot for the last 19 years. So there's me on the beach when I was a little boy. I own Balearic Helicopters, a helicopter company based here. I'm a commercial helicopter pilot. It's a European license, so it's a European helicopter license. I'm a European flight instructor. I'm a European flight examiner. And I have over 6,500 hours flight time, which is a fairly high amount. So that's me. The company I started in 2015, and we've been flying here mainly we have two markets for the tourism. We have sightseeing tours, which takes people on trips around the island. But we also, our big core business is pilot training for the European private license. So teaching people to become a helicopter pilot. And we are based out in Mallorca, just outside Palma. And we're open throughout the year. So since 2015, our company has turned over 3 million euros in revenue on flying, of which the majority is training. We employ quite a few people. We have 2 full-time pilots in the company. We have a full-time administrator. And in the summer, we'll employ an additional pilot. So we have 3 pilots in the summer, and we are based in Solmonet with the office and the hangar. We own our own helicopter, but we also lease in 3 other helicopters. The sightseeing flights, mainly for the tourism market. There's most of the flying comes in from people visiting the island on holiday. We do from 15 minutes to 2.5 hours. Basic prices from 300 euros for a short flight, all the way up to 2,400 for an entire trip of the island. So we operate under several different approvals. Currently, we hold what's known as an Air Operator Certificate, an AOC. It is issued by the UK Civil Aviation Authority, and as part of the UK CAA, is actually part of EASA in Europe. It is therefore valid in Europe. So we are currently operating under a UK approval. So the UK Civil Aviation Authority are the ones who are issuing our approvals. For the flight training, we offer the flight training for the private pilot's license and from all over Europe. So basically anyone from Europe can learn to fly here, and the license is valid anywhere in Europe. One of the massive sales points, of course, for Majorca is the weather. So we have a huge amount of people training from all over Europe because the weather here is so fantastic. They have a lot of connections with the island. They love it here. The weather's great. You know, you think this time of year, you're looking out the window today, it's lovely sunshine, whereas in Northern Europe, it's dark, cold, wet, and miserable. License can cost anywhere between 25,000 and 50,000 euros, depending on which type you fly, on which model of aircraft you learn on. So that is our big arm. We hold a flight training approval. It's a European one. It's called an ATO, and it's approved training organisation. This is also issued by the UK CAA as part of a European EASA system. And so this approval is currently valid throughout Europe. And the UK CAA are the ones who issue it and approve and have oversight of our company at the moment. So the tours that we offer, so the sightseeing side of it, it breaks down actually about 30% Germany, about 30% British, so they're kind of equal. 20% rest of Europe, so Scandinavia and Denmark and Holland, places like that. Not a lot of Spanish. We only have about 10% Spanish and 10% of other from Russia and the USA and outside. With our training arm, the training again is it's European. We have 20% from Germany. However, we have 45% of our flight training comes from the UK. So we are a big training arm when it comes towards the UK. They love it here. They have a lot of connections here. And so it's quite common for them to be here. 25% from the rest of Europe. So Holland and Scandinavia. 5% of Spain. So we don't have a lot of local business. We're not a big local Spanish economy business. We have most of it is tourism. And again, 5% from the USA and Russia and outside from around the world. So the type of clients that we look at in the sightseeing market, well, we're talking high end here. It's not a cheap thing, helicopters. If you can spend 2,400 euros on a sightseeing tour of the island, you're obviously going to have quite a lot of wealth. They're going to stay in the best hotels. Most of them do stay in the best hotels. They rent the big villas, and they are renting big cars. They're spending a lot of money on the island. They're putting a lot of money into this economy. They're staying in the best hotels. They're eating in the best restaurants. They're renting the best cars. And we estimate, looking at it, that they're probably spending around 1,000 euros a day on holiday here. So this is a very important, high quality kind of client that we deal with. And they're staying here for about 2 weeks is the average stay on holiday. So they're putting in quite a lot of economy into Mallorca. They're putting in well over 14,000 euros of revenue, we've worked out. Training, well, similar. The training market, we actually have several types of clients. They have lots of them who actually own villas here, holiday makers. We train lots of people who come here on holiday. But they have a property here. So, they come out here, they do here for a few weeks, they do some training, they go back to their native country, they come back and forth. Or they rent a villa for the entire stay. And several of people we've taught to fly, they own yachts in the marinas. So again, we're talking high-end clients. We're talking, some of the very, very wealthy island people who come to visit Mallorca. Again, with putting a lot of money into the economy, renting cars, eating, drinking in the same very high-quality establishments. And yeah, they'll still spend £1,000 a day. 1,000 euros a day, sorry. And they're going to be here for 2 months. So they're going to put, over 60,000 euros through the economy. So that's who we are, and that's who we deal with as clients. So I'm going to talk to you slightly now about aviation and how it works, how the general idea of the worldwide aviation system works. We start with ICAO. ICAO is the worldwide body from the United Nations. It is basically the people who write the rules and regulations for all aviation worldwide. They are the ones who develop what's known as recommended practices for all sorts of air navigation, flight training, cross-border flying, search and rescue, everything. 193 countries, which Spain is one, UK is one. Most countries are signatories of ICAO. So that is the big major board. Then we have Europe. Europe is EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency. Okay, the European Aviation, EASA, they are the ones who produce the laws and regulations for all of aviation in Europe. So they're the ones who regulate licensing, aircraft, they have how everything is done. So they are the ones who are in charge of European aviation. 32 member states, of which Spain and currently the UK are all signatory members, and so therefore we're all one big happy family. Each state then enforces the regulations and procedures on their own. So we have EASA. EASA is the Spanish Aviation Authority. They are the ones who are in charge of the aviation in Spain. They are responsible for the EASA regulations of Europe. They are the ones who look after the Spanish operators in Europe, then licensing in Europe, and also they are in charge of the Spanish airspace. So they are the people who are basically the Spanish airspace regulations and EASA, and operate on behalf of EASA in Spain. We then have the CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK, similar to the EASA. They are the UK authority. They're responsible for regulation and enforcement for the UK operating or UK licenses and in charge of UK airspace. So it kind of works like this. You have ICAO at the top. That is the worldwide body. You then drop down to EASA. EASA are the ones who run after Europe. We then have 32 member states, of which the UK, EASA, DJC in France, Portugal, every single state has their own aviation authority. This is how it all currently works. So we all work together under EASA. We're all working. And so if you're approved in one country, you can fly in another country. However, Brexit. So if there's a no deal on the 1st of January, and it is a complete cut and a complete tie, and one thing I will say is because I've lived here most of my life, I was not allowed to even vote for it. So I don't have any say in whether I could or could not want to stay or go. So the UK Civil Aviation Authority will become a separate entity to EASA. They will be shut off from EASA. They will become an ICAO-only compliant body. So they will have nothing to do with the European aviation system. What does that mean for me? Well, firstly, I'm a commercial helicopter pilot. I hold a European commercial license issued by the Civil Aviation Authority. Now, there we go. So currently, my license is issued by the UK and it's valid in Europe. I can use it anywhere in Europe. I can work anywhere in Europe and it works. However, as of the 1st of January, my UK CAA commercial license will no longer be EASA compliant, which means that I will no longer be permitted to work commercially in Europe. This means that I had two choices. I can either change my license before the 1st of January 2021, which is what I'm currently doing, and it's what I have to do. I have no choice to do this. And that's cost me about €1,000 per pilot. We've had to move our licenses out of the UK CAA so we can continue to fly in Europe. If I didn't do that, I would have to do a complete retraining, which would be about 30, 40 hours of flight training and cost around €30,000. So I'm required to change my license, which is a very large expense and has been taking quite a lot of time. And my PowerPoint seems to have stopped. So that's the commercial pilot. So all my pilots who work for me will have to have a European license. So basically, we've all had to change our licenses, which is what we've currently done. I will no longer be allowed to hire a UK pilot as of next year because they will not have a European commercial license. So my employment is no longer going to be open to the UK public, the UK pilots. So that's the end of that one. Private licenses. So if you're a private pilot, that's like a driver's license. You can hire a helicopter from us. You can fly around. You can do all sorts of fun stuff. It's you can't work for it, but you can operate privately. So as of the 1st of January, you will no longer be permitted to fly a helicopter that is registered in Europe because your license will be UK only. So you will only be permitted to fly UK helicopter. So basically, the helicopters will no longer be available to private pilots. A lot of our market basically does actually mean people come on holiday, they come and stay here, they have a license and they want to go for flight. They want to go for lunch, they want to go for fly around the island. They will no longer be permitted to do this because their license is no longer European, so they will no longer be allowed to fly a European helicopter. So that is the market on that side I'm going to be losing. So helicopters. Currently, a lot of our fleet are UK helicopters. They're UK registered. We either lease in or own. That's okay. There's no problem. It's Europe. So we can actually lease a helicopter from anywhere in Europe into the company. However, as of the 1st of January, the helicopter will no longer be European. So we will no longer be able to operate a UK registered helicopter in Europe. It will be no longer permitted. So we cannot operate UK helicopters. That means that all the helicopters that we actually currently have, we're going to have to re-register into Europe. That's costing €5,000 per helicopter. It also cuts the market off from UK. I will no longer be leasing UK helicopters in, so that is completely stopped. So we will no longer be operating G-registered helicopters. So our AOC approval. So currently we operate the commercial arm. The sightseeing flights are done under a UK EASA European sightseeing approval, tour approval. As of the 1st of January, this will no longer be applicable in Europe. We will not be allowed to operate AOC flights within Europe. So we can operate no more sightseeing flights or tours. And so we have to stop that approval. We're going to have to get a different one. We're going to cost us about 10,000 euros a year for a new approval from a European country. We could apply for our own approval, and we could actually take one from Spain. That's going to take even more money and take even longer to approve. So currently we're looking at leasing in another approval from another state. Our training approval, again, European. So it's a CA issued, European approved air training organization for our trainings arm. We will no longer be allowed to conduct flight training under the UK approval within Europe as of the 1st of January. So we will no longer be able to train under our UK approval. We're going to have to set up our training approval, which we have already done. So we actually have a Spanish training approval now, which allows us to continue to maintain flight training in Spain. That was a €3,000 bill just to set up the paperwork. Airspace. So AESA are the regulators of Spanish airspace, and they're the ones who are in charge of what we do and how we do it and how we fly in Spain. They have told me as of the 1st of January, AESA will not permit a UK pilot to be trained within Spanish airspace. So if a UK pilot comes here as of the 1st of January and wants to do some flight training, they will not be allowed. So they will not be allowed to train. So UK pilots will not be allowed to train for UK licenses in Spain as of the 1st of January. Similarly, a lot of training we do, as I'm a flight examiner, we do a large amount of flight examining. We do a lot of testing for European licenses. So when you're a pilot, you have to be tested once a year. So every year I have to test all my pilots to make sure they are suitable and fit to fly. As of the 1st of January, AESA will not permit me to test or examine a UK pilot within Spanish airspace. So the UK pilots will no longer be able to come here and do their examining or their training, as they have been for the last 19 years. So far this year, the costs to actually change everything over to Europe, so for no other reason than Brexit, has cost my company over €25,000 just to do this, which in COVID is actually quite a big amount, because we've been hit hard with COVID, with the regulations stopping us flying, and now we have all this additional costs on top. On top of that, our loss of earnings. So as I showed you earlier, 45% of our training market's from the UK. However, the UK market will no longer be allowed to come out here and train. They won't be able to retrain, they won't be able to do their exams, and they won't be able to train for a UK license. So we're expecting a loss of 45% of our training market as of next year, which amounts to about 30% of our turnover. So we're going to take a massive hit because of Brexit. So we're reckoning that our company is going to lose about 160,000 euros worth of revenue next year, purely because of Brexit. We're going to have to look at different arms, and we're going to have to look at changing our complete focus from the UK market and start looking into Europe, because that is how the market is going to end up as of next year. But also you have to consider the fact that not only are we going to have that loss of people coming here, but Majorca's going to lose those people coming as well. They're not going to come here. If they can't fly here, there's a lot of people that are just going to say, well, you know, I used to come out to Majorca every year, stay with Majorca, loved the place, fly around. It was fantastic. They can't do that anymore. So they'll look elsewhere. They'll just go and do something else, and they'll fly elsewhere. So I would anticipate the loss of revenue to the Majorca as an island will be far, far higher than what we're going to lose, because people will just stop coming. They're going to go elsewhere, because they'll fly in America or anywhere they want to go. So Brexit has had a huge impact on my business. And like I said, we just have to find a way of changing it and becoming more European. it's a massive shame. The Brits love Mallorca. I mean, they love flying out here. They love coming here. They've got the weather. They've got 2 hours. You're only 2 hours away from the UK, and you can be in great weather, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of great place to do. So that is basically how Brexit is going to affect the aviation regulatory system as of the 1st of January, which I now open for questions for anyone who has any.
Muchísimas gracias a los dos por vuestra intervención. Realmente con la última me he quedado alucinada con toda la repercusión que va a tener el Brexit en el sector de los helicópteros y todo lo que implica tanto pues, para la empresa de Jonny como para las Islas Baleares y para los ingresos de otras empresas que pueden estar vinculadas con la empresa de helicópteros. Si tienen alguna pregunta, les agradecería que le hicieran, por favor, a través del chat y les iremos dando la respuesta. Entonces empieza el turno de preguntas. Si les quieren pues, preguntar algo o tienen alguna inquietud, pues es el momento de hacerlo. Muchísimas gracias. Una pregunta. ¿Confían en que se pueda alcanzar algún acuerdo para convalidar las licencias británicas? ¿Se sabe si se está estudiando el tema de esa convalidación? Muchísimas gracias.
Personally, yes. I think there will be an aviation deal where aviation will get together, because you have to remember, I'm just a small little company in Majorca. This is actually a European-wide problem. It's not just me. I think the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, I think will do a deal with the CAA. What that deal will be, I'm not sure, but I think there will be a deal personally. But at the moment, the legislation is no, there won't be.
Eso significa que tenemos que esperar al 1 de enero para saber qué va a pasar con todo el tema de la convalidación de las licencias. Entiendo yo.
Yeah, we can't speak anymore about the 1st of January until the 1st. We have to wait to the 1st of January because that's the official cutoff date. From that date forward, we will know exactly where everything stands. I can only state now is what the actual legislation is this very moment. It could change tomorrow. They are changing at such a rapid rate. Yeah, I can tell you exactly how it is today until the 1st of January, but it may change tomorrow. There's just so many different things changing at this moment.
Muchas gracias por la respuesta. No veo por ahora ninguna pregunta más en el chat. Podemos esperar un momentito y si no, daremos paso al señor Toni Vicens para que clausure el acto, nuestro director de Relaciones Exteriores. Parece que lo han explicado tanto Jason como Jonny realmente bien. Veo que no hay ninguna pregunta. Muchísimas gracias a los dos ponentes por su intervención y por explicarnos temas que a veces nos quedan muy lejos de nuestra realidad. Y paso la palabra al señor Antoni Vicens, el director general de Relaciones Exteriores. Muchísimas gracias.
Bon dia a tothom, moltes gràcies Jason i Jonny pel seu relat i per la seva vivència i la visió dels britànics residents a les illes o els mallorquins, menorquins i vicencs i formenterencs que tenim aquesta relació tan arrelada amb el Regne Unit des de fa tant d'anys. We have seen that a lot of elements are still open and we need to be very careful in the next 6 months because difficult moments will arrive in the next future. And also not only for the European Union without the United Kingdom, but also I think in the internal process inside the United Kingdom. Amb aquesta jornada clausuram aquest cicle de Brexit que es va iniciar a principis de gener amb un marc de Brexit encara molt obert i que hem intentat anar tancant amb els principals impactes que pot tenir a l'economia de les Illes Balears. Amb aquesta jornada també hem volgut apropar els diferents elements que pot tenir el Brexit en diferents espais de la nostra economia i esperam que amb això haver pogut col·laborar juntament amb la Cambra de Comerç, tot el govern i tots els que han col·laborat, a establir una mica més quin serà el marc futur de relació que ens espera a partir d'ara. És vera que tenim encara molts elements oberts, però esperam que amb aquestes jornades que podreu trobar també la diferent informació tant a la pàgina web de la Cambra com a la pàgina web del Center Balears Europa, pugui establir una mica més de claretat amb els processos que queden. I només, as a final message, especially to the people from the United Kingdom, we hope that, as Nelson said in Trafalgar, every man will do his duty in the next 6 difficult months. And we hope that even in that difficult moment, even if we face difficult times, we will be capable to remain together. Thank you.